Hey everyone, it's Akiva.
And Mishak.
And welcome back to another episode of The Bemused. So today, we're doing a little bit of reminiscing because it's just about a year after we graduated from undergrad. So today's video is all about preparing for life after graduation.
Life for me, preparing for life after graduation was, from what I remember, a bit challenging.
Yes, and more than difficult, it was costly, which is a big part of why we're doing this video, because we want you to also be prepared for the costs that are associated with whatever step you take after you leave undergrad.
I was on the track to go to law school. So I was in LSAT classes with Kaplan. I was going, I think, 2 or 3 times a week.
I had to pick him up half of those times, so I was going through it with him.
It was very, very stressful. On top of that, doing, coursework for my classes. We were also involved in student government at that time. So it was, and then we also had part-time jobs. So it was a lot going on all at once now. And going back to that Kaplan class, I got it on a discount, thank God. But I remember it was around $1,100 that I paid for the class. And then I also had to purchase the textbooks for the class. And that was around, I want to say $30 to $50 for those textbooks. So that was my experience in preparing for, higher education after graduation.
Yeah, so similarly, I also went straight to graduate school after graduation, and that was an expense. I studied accounting in undergrad, and I knew that I wanted to go for my CPA license once I graduated. And so I was also doing review classes for the CPA through Becker, so also driving out an hour 2 nights a week to go to class. Thankfully, and this is probably a pro tip, thankfully, my potential employer at the time paid for the classes, which otherwise would have run me about $3,500. So that was a cost savings there. But if you don't have an employer that will sponsor that for you, that is a cost that you have to be prepared for. If you are trying to, pursue professional licensure or take graduate admissions tests. I also had to take the GMAT for graduate school. So that was another expense, I think and I sat for it twice because I didn't like my score the first time. So I sat for it again. So just keep that all in mind. Some things don't always go right on the first try. And I think that was $200 each sitting of the GMAT that I did early in my senior year. Yeah, that's a crazy story all on its own that we'll probably get to another day. But point is, I got through it and it went well. When I got accepted to my graduate program in, I want to say December or early January of my senior year, it was exciting. Got a nice exciting letter saying, hey, you've been accepted, congratulations. This is a scholarship you're getting and we need your $500 deposit by next week. So there's also that. You also have to be prepared for the deposits that schools might require. Thankfully, I was getting my school refund check that week because I had overpaid a bit, with my student loan. So thankfully, I was able to use the whole check, and I still had to come out of pocket about another $100 just to make the $500. But just be prepared for costs like that. So it's a very, very costly time.
Yeah. And going back to my original story, I didn't end up going the law route, but I did have a backup plan. And that's something that I think is very, very important, and also being strategic about your backup plan. Because I knew that I had paid over $1,000 for these LSAT prep classes. Then I also had to pay for the exam itself. That was over $100. I don't remember the exact amount. And then because I applied early, I did save myself some money, but it still cost me. LSAT charged $30 to send a report of my transcript, my LSAT score, my letters of recommendation, and all of that in one to the schools that I applied to. And because I applied early, I wasn't an extra fee wasn't attached to it, because each school also has an application fee. So that's a little tip for you, that if you apply early, you can waive some of those fees, because some schools can charge from anywhere between $50 to $100. So on top of the $30 to send it to each school, you'd be paying each school's individual application fee. But anyways, going back to my backup plan, I applied to an MBA program, which I ended up going to after, like I said, things didn't go as planned with law school. And that school had no application fee. It did not require the GMAT, because I knew that I was not going to pay another $100+ to take that exam, to possibly have to pay for a tutor. So I knew that that would have been the route for me.
So I don't even know how I missed that. I got a tutor for my GMAT as well. So on top of paying $400 just to sit for the exam a couple of times, I also hired a private tutor. So that also ran me a few $100s as well. And he was really awesome, really great experience. I should have just done it the first time, done it right, instead of not doing so well as I'd liked, to then find a tutor, to then waste money to pay for it a second time. So in hindsight, I would have just gotten a tutor from the beginning, done it right, sat for it, done well. So that's another cost.
And job hunting. This is probably the most important, but yet the most frightening stage of any, college graduates, that transitional period between graduation and life after graduation. For me, I did not really do much job searching. I knew that I was going to law school, so I wasn't really thinking about working afterwards. So that might have been in the back of my mind. And you're getting all these letters saying, oh, you're waitlisted, or whatever the response might be. So you're kind of holding out hope, and you have to know yourself individually. I know that although I worked in undergrad, I was, from hearing other people speak about what law school was like, I was prepared for something very, very difficult. So for me, I wanted to get the best grades possible. So working just wasn't something that I was even thinking about, in the slightest bit. So when things went not my way, south, whatever you want to call it, with law school, and I decided to do the MBA program, again, working became something that, hey, let me apply for a job. I didn't really, apply anywhere, because my next issue was, okay, I'm going here, but how is it going to work? How am I going to work, in this city, commute maybe 40 minutes every day to get to class? How is that going to work? Is it going to be conducive for me? Am I going to perform well?
Yes. So my experience was also interesting, especially because I'm now living in Massachusetts, which is a whole nother state. I'm from New York, went to school in Maryland, and I knew that I was coming out here to Massachusetts to go to grad school. So I wanted to find a job out here in Massachusetts. And I knew that was always my plan. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to work. Well, not even really wanted. I needed to work in order to sustain myself and to pay my bills, because I've always been an independence type of person. So I knew that I wanted a job so I can support myself. And so job hunting, it was costly. You came out here with me a couple of times when I had interviews, and especially companies that have multi-staged interviews. So I had to come out here not just one time, but a few times, to meet with all the people that I'm interviewing with, the different companies. I think I was out here maybe 3 or 4 times just for interviews. And so that added up. Thankfully, the firm that I eventually did get hired by reimbursed me for a lot of those costs, but it was expensive. Doing that drive from New York to Boston, back and forth, it adds up. So that's definitely a cost that I incurred. Like I said, some of it was eventually reimbursed by my now employer, but that's also an important cost to keep in mind, especially if you're moving across states and looking for a new job.